Alright, so here's an interesting product. This is the NES Satellite, and this came out in 1989 as a means to play four-player games on the NES. Now there's a few handful of four-player games on the NES. Off the top of my head, RC Pro AM and Pro Action Football come to mind, but there's quite a few. And this was the first way to play the four-player games. Now, this is a wireless device, which is really my biggest complaint with it, and I'll show you why in a minute. You have the wireless receiver here for it. Obviously, it's designed to match the original NES. It lines up perfectly with it. You know, if you have some sort of a clone system and the spacing of the controller ports is different, it might not work. And then here's your main unit here, where you'd plug in your four controllers. You've got your infrared transmitter here. You've got a power button with a light. We have a button here, or a switch rather, for if you're using a controller or a gun. I imagine that's because the way it's going to have to cycle the timing for four controller ports is going to mess up the gun. With the gun, you just want it to go straight to controller port 2 on the receiver without doing any cycling for the extra controller ports. So I would imagine they had to put a switch on there for the gun to work, so it's pretty cool that they did. And then we have a turbo buttons here for A and B buttons. Obviously if you turn turbos on, that's for everybody, you know, so you'd kind of have to agree, do you all want turbos on for one button or another? Or I guess you could use this for one player, but that would kind of defeat the purpose. Now, I can kind of see where they were going with the wireless factor on this thing. I mean, in 1989, it might have just been a, hey, look what we can do, we're so high-tech. But at the same time, if you had your NES, you know, in a entertainment system, you know, shelf, and, you know, maybe you had a big TV, big living room, your couch is pretty far away from your TV, then it kind of made sense, because you'd leave the NES in the entertainment system, you'd have this on your, you know, coffee table with your four friends plugged into it. They're closer to the couch, it gives you that extra distance that you need, and at the same time, you know, you don't have four controller wires running to the NES, which would be very likely that someone might trip over one of those four cables and knock the NES off. So it's kind of neat in that regards, but here's the problem. I just picked this up the other day. Got this at Value Village for $5.99, and it's in great shape, so I was pretty happy to get this, but you know, I've never seen one in person before. I knew it was going to take batteries. I mean, obviously, as a wireless device, it has to have power. I was kind of hoping it was going to take, you know, maybe 4 AA's or something. So I opened it up, and, well, unfortunately, that's 6 C batteries. Of course, who uses C batteries anymore? I mean, back in the late 80s, early 90s, the C and the D battery cells, you know, they were fairly common. We all had, you know, big stereo ghetto blasters and stuff that took the D batteries, and, you know, nowadays, nothing uses these C batteries anymore, so, you know, no one has C batteries lying around anymore. Now, a year later, they did come out with the NES 4-score. Basically the same idea, except it's not wireless, so it just, you know, there's a wire plugs into the 2 controller ports on the front of the NES. Of course, nowadays, I would recommend getting the 4-score. If you just want to play 4-player games on your NES, pick up the 4-score. But you know, this is still a pretty neat product. If you can find this for under $10 and you know, you want to play 4-player games on the NES, I definitely recommend picking it up.